Hello, trumpet players. Today I want to talk to you about exercises that I call the articulation expansion exercises. These exercises are based on the articulation exercises in Herbert L. Clarke's characteristic studies. There are articulation and double tongue studies at the beginning of the book. And I was doing those exercises all the way back in high school. I never stopped doing them until I wrote my own book. And when it was time to write my own book, the Daily Routines book, I decided just to avoid, because I didn't understand copyright at that time yet. I didn't know what I could write and what I couldn't write. So I decided to write exercises that were based on that study. Now, let me play one of those exercises from that page. I'm going to back off from the mic here. Now, the page was full of those different articulation patterns. And so, like I said, I was doing them all those years, and the patterns in the Clarke book make sense from an educational standpoint. The easiest ones to learn are at the beginning, and the hardest ones to learn are at the end. But I got this idea later, like I guess 10 years, 15 years after I wrote my first book. I had this idea that since we do these exercises every day, it's no longer about doing them what's easiest first, right? Now, why don't we change that order so that we get more benefit from the order that we do the exercises in? Does that make sense? So I switched the order up and made it part of my expansion exercise concept. Almost all the exercises I do today are based on this expansion exercise concept. Always expanding difficulty. We're expanding range, we're expanding key signatures, we're expanding all the different kinds of difficulty, right? In these particular exercises, we're getting an expansion of the articulation, we're getting an expansion of the range, because these exercises start in a narrow range, and as you progress, they get to your full range. Now, because it's to your full range, that means there's more than one set of these, because different people have different range, right? And we'll talk about that in a second. And then it also expands all the different keys. So you're going to be doing 12 of these exercises, and you're going to be hitting every single key on the way. So they're even if you don't use my system, they're extremely valuable exercises. Now, why am I talking about this now? Well, someone on Facebook had asked, they said that they're doing fine, they're making progress, but when they work on their articulation or multiple tongue, tone and all that other stuff goes out the window. And that's kind of normal. Because in my opinion, articulation is what floats over the top of all those other physical aspects. And if the way you practice each day isn't based on a building up philosophy like my physical trumpet pyramid philosophy, and you can click here to hear about my physical trumpet pyramid philosophy, the structure that I use for the routines. But when you use that kind of structure, you build a foundation first before you get to the articulation. The articulation is something that, like I said, floats over the top of all those other aspects. If you don't have that, it's normal to sort of like do this balancing show where you're trying to balance this and trying to balance that, and now you're going to add articulation and the whole thing falls apart. And these exercises, whether you use the routine structure or not, these exercises are meant to help incorporate that foundation into the exercises. That's why we switched to a expansion order instead of what's easiest to what's most difficult. And just to give you an idea, and I'm just making this off the top of my head, I don't have this, maybe I'll write this as an exercise and hand it out, a modified, and I do have somewhere a free download of the modified Clark studies. It might be on the Tiger Music Store. Anyway, so let's look at that same, I'm not going to play the whole exercise, but let's look at that again and look at the patterns that I have in my exercises. Instead of doing the ones that they have, we're going to tongue every fourth note. Slur 4 notes, tongue, slur 4 notes, tongue. And I'm tonguing extra hard so you hear it. See that? So I'm slurring 4 notes. Then the next thing we do is slur 2 notes. You see that? And we're going to go from this slurring more to tonguing more gradually over the course of 12 exercises. The reason I do 12 is, like I said, we're going through all the different keys. The only exception to that is those beginner students that don't know all the keys. So like the absolute beginners, we only do 6 exercises. The second level beginners, we do 7 exercises. But then for the third level, you're already doing all 12 keys. Now, if you don't know all 12 keys yet, I strongly recommend you learn all 12 keys. This is, you know, with my students, when we get to these exercises, a lot of them will say, well, I can't play all 12 keys. Time to start. That's one of the reasons why it's there, right? Is to present sort of like a ultimatum, so to speak, a musical ultimatum. You know, put this in front of the kids, make them do it now. They will appreciate you having them do this later when it comes in handy. Because if, you know, we're doing the articulation studies every day, right? You should be. This is not, articulation should not be something that you're doing. And by the way, when I say every day, I don't mean every day. Every day that you practice, you should be doing articulation studies every day that you practice. Okay? So this is not something that you just do when you're, and maybe that's part of the problem with the person that was asking, is I think a lot of people say, well, my articulation's not going so good. Maybe I need to work on that. You should be working on that every single time you practice. It should be part of your regular trumpet routine, your practice routine. Some place in your schedule should be dedicated to articulation studies. Okay? And that can be another reason why someone would have difficulty when they're tonguing with maintaining all those other good qualities they've been working on. Anyway, so that's why we're talking about this now, is more or less as an answer to the question, what happens, what do I do when I'm starting to work on my articulation and everything else goes out the window? This is the answer to that. You want to have a practice structure, and I'm making a pyramid here. You want to have that practice structure that builds in levels where the air is the foundation at the bottom, and you build on top of that air. And at the very top is articulation and triple tongue, double tongue. The very top of the pyramid is triple tongue and double tongue. Okay? If you go in the if you take the exercises in that order and do this on a regular, semi-daily basis, a lot of that we're talking about going out the window won't go out the window, because your whole structure is based on that. Okay? But there's also this other thing about doing it every day, right? So there's the order that you do it, doing it every day, and then the last thing is the structure of the exercises themselves, this expansion structure where you're expanding the range, expanding the tongue pattern, and expanding the keys. That's powerful. That's powerful. Now let me tell you about the exercises and where they're available. This sort of is a sales video, but it's not, right? You can take everything that I just said and make it work for yourself. You don't have to buy my stuff, right? The only time I sell things this way is when you might want it. Okay? Let's make that clear. I'm not trying to motivate you to buy my stuff. I'm just letting you know that it's there because it can save you a lot of work. Okay? I'm not a salesperson. I've always been a horrible salesperson, so I'm not trying to pitch my products to you. I'm teaching you something here about this expansion process, but if you want an easy way to plug and play, make it work, the exercises, I'm going to put links to the exercises down below. Now, for now, I'm recommending that you only get them at PayHip. We have it at our store right now, but we're about to take the store down and change it to a different platform. So I don't want to encourage people to go to that store right now. It might work, but if you go to that link, if I put links for that right now, it might be during that time when we're changing the format, and you won't be able to buy it. So, and I don't have these up yet on Sheet Music Plus. I just checked. So I'll tell you what I'll do. As I get these products up in different places, I'll update the links below. So if the links are there below, then for the different places, then then it's okay. All the stuff has been put up and everything. But for now, at this time when I'm making this video now, the only links I'm going to have in the video are to my PayHip account. So you can go there. There'll be links down there in the description, and I'll probably put a pinned comment with links there too. Now, the reason why I'm saying links is there's 7 different routines based on your range. And I guess I need to explain that real quick too. I have 7 levels. I have the Pioneer level, which is the lowest level. Your highest note is C in the staff. Then I have the Tyro level, which is E in the staff. Then the Trumpet Player level, which is G above the staff. And then the Apprentice level, Trumpet Apprentice, which is B flat above the staff. Trumpet Pro is C above the staff. Trumpet Master is E, 3 ledger lines above. And Trumpet Virtuoso is the G, 4 ledger lines above the staff. Okay, so according to the range that you have now, that should be the exercise that you download and practice if you're interested in using my exercises. Okay, now you can download some of the lower ones, because, and we haven't talked about this in any of the videos yet, but it's a video that I want to make in the near future. I call it range limiting. Range limiting is some of the most powerful chop building that you can do. And I know that sounds bizarre because I'm telling you, yes, limit your range on certain days. Okay? But it's some of the most powerful chop building you can do. And what's nice about my system is you can do range limiting and still cover all of your bases. You don't have to leave anything out of your practice day, because my system is set up in a way that accommodates each different range level. Okay? And we haven't talked much about that on my channel yet, because there's just so much going on, right? I haven't been as organized about that as I should be, because there's a lot of stuff that I teach we still haven't talked about. And I think this is one of those, the range limiting, the system of exercises that I have that cover the different range levels. But anyway, so yes, this is the articulation expansion exercise that we're talking about. If you find value in it, I can encourage you to give it a try. If you don't want to use my exercises, you can just modify what you're already doing to fit the same description. Okay? For that matter, you could go back to the Clark studies. Okay? All right. So if you have any questions about this, please feel free to ask below. And other than that, God bless you, and we'll see you on the next video. Thank you.